Okay, now we are in step 9. We'll be configuring DHCP server in server 2016 here in this server. As I said before, in production network, switches and routers are not used as DHCP server. They're rather used for routing and switching purpose only. A Windows PC or Linux machine could be operate as the DHCP server, and that could be connected to your distribution layer switches. But if you have the collapsed core network where you do not have the distribution layer switches, then this server could be connected to your core layer switches. Also, likewise, the active failover, we can also configure active DHCP server as the high availability. So if there is an SPF, like a single point of failure, we still have a standby. But we are trying to make it simple, and we are configuring only one DHCP server connected to our distribution switch 2. So the way it will work, the server will provide the VLAN's IP information to the DHCP server, and we have configured them already as the BTP server. So the client switches will have the VLAN information like the gateway, IPs and stuff like that from the BTP server, and from the access switches the endpoint users will have their IPs. Okay, let's do that. So this is the 2016 server. First I'll go to the manage, add roles and features, next role based and feature based installation, next, and then we'll leave as it is. Select a server from the server pool, next, and then we'll select DHCP server here, add features, next, we'll leave as it is, next, and we'll say install. It is going to take a couple of minutes. We'll hit close, cancel, and if you see the flags here, complete DHCP configuration, and then we'll say commit, close. Now if you can see, we can see the DHCP here, but we'll go to Windows Administrative Tool, and then we'll bring it to our desktop. Send to desktop as creating shortcuts, and then if we notice we have it here, we'll double click it, and then from here we'll click to server 2016, and in the IPv4 I will click new scope, next, and this is the name I will give for my VLANs. So I will start with VLAN 10, and the description I will put the range there. This is /24, and it gives us the range, and then the starting IP it is starting from 10. That is similar to the command IP DHCP exclude. So we are excluding the first 10 IPs. Now the length will be /24. That's a class pool CMask. We don't need this. We'll also leave this page as it is. That is the least duration, so it will be there for 8 days. Next, yes, I want to configure these options now. Next, this is the default gateway for the VLAN 10. So the router default IP will be the first IP 10.10.10.1. If you want, you can try something different, but I want the first IP for the gateway. Add, next, domain name and DNS server. Server name I will say Google. IP address will be 8.8.8.8. Add, and it's gonna take some time. This IP address 8.8.8.8 is not a valid DNS address. Do you still want to add it? I will say yes. Next, and Wins server, we don't need that. Next, and I would say I want to activate this scope now. Next, finish. So our first scope is done for the VLAN 10. Similar way, we'll create the other 4 VLANs. So it's the same way, new scope. If you notice, these are the range 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. This is the gateway. or say yes. We don't need this. Next, I'll activate it now. Finish. Similar way, we will create the VLAN 30. VLAN 30 is for accounting. For all the VLANs, I'm excluding the first 10 IPs. Again, /24 mask. This is the gateway for VLAN 30. This is the DNS server. New scope. Next. This is the default gateway for VLAN 40. Same DNS server, Google. Lastly, we have VLAN 50, that is server. Gateway for VLAN 50. Same Google server as DNS. Yes. Next. We don't need this, and I'll activate now, and it's done. Now if you see, I have 5 pools here: 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So for the server part is done. Now I'll go to the switch. This is distribution switch 2. I'll see in its ETH2/1 if I have the 35.1. If you notice, I have not configured this port here. The 2/1 here, it's unassigned. So I need to assign this port first. I will say interface ETH2/1. No switch port. By default, it's in layer 2. I'm making it layer 3 now, and I will say IP add 35.1.35.1. And if you notice, this is a /29 mask. So in its first block, I have 0 to 7. That means we have 8 hosts, 6 of them usable. I'm using 1, so I can assign 2 in the DHCP server and 3 in the IC server. So for the /29 mask, I have 255, 255, 255.248, and no shut. And I'll save it and then exit out. Now in the distribution switch, I have to tell who is the DHCP server. So this is the central DHCP server. I have to go to each VLAN and I have to say IP helper address, and then I have to give the address. But I don't think so I have configured any addresses here. So 35.1 is here. So I will go to the server one more time. I will type ncpa.cpl. That will bring up the network adapters, properties, IPv4 properties, and then I'll do it manually. That is 35.35.35.2. Subnet mask will be 255, 255, 255, 248. Default gateway will be 35.35.35.1, which is this one, and DNS will be 8.8.8.8. The other one will be Cloudflare. So I did a mistake here. There will be 1 here. Let's see if I can ping the distribution switch. Now if you notice, I can ping the gateway, which is distribution switch 2. That's good. So I'm in the distribution switch 2. I don't need the distribution switch 1 now. Now I'll go to each VLAN and I will say IP helper address, and then I'll give the IP address for the server. I'll say interface VLAN 10, and then I'll say IP helper address 35.1.35.2. And this will now allow the local DHCP request to go to the DHCP server. So I have to do that in each VLAN. So I will simply copy and paste it. Copy and then paste, and then I'll save it. Okay, now it's the time for verification. Now let's see if all the VPCs, like the virtual PCs in the EVNG, get the IPs from the DHCP server. So I'll go to the VPC1, from the access switch 1 first. Try that. If you notice, I do not have anything here as of now, but I will say IP DHCP. Fantastic. It is getting IP from the VLAN 10 pool from the DHCP server. Okay, let's go to this VPC. If you notice, it runs the DORA protocol and it has the IP from the VLAN 20. That's good. Let's go to access switch 2. And if everything is okay, it should get the IPs from the VLAN 40. If you notice, it got the DORA protocol, so it is okay. Now in the VPC 2, and it should get the IPs from the VLAN 30. That is also okay. This is VLAN 30. VLAN 30 is okay. And this is VLAN 50. Access switch 4. That is also okay. Lastly, let's turn on this PC. And if everything is okay, then this PC from access switch 3, it should have the IPs from the DHCP server from the VLAN 20 range. Let's see. I'll directly go to the network adapter, properties, IPv4 properties, and let's try obtain IPs automatically. Okay. Now let's do detail. If you notice, it has 20.20.20.11, the IP address. The default gateway is 20.1. Everything looks okay. So let's save all the configurations so far. So we have finished our step 9. I'll see you in my next step.